Very good morning to one and all, especially to those who are joining us directly from Barbados in the Caribbean Urban Forum. Thank you for joining us on this morning. My name is Jordan Harris, and I am the program coordinator for the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy in the Americas. This is a project that's supported directly by the European Union through the Foreign Partnership Instrument and covers the entirety of the Western Hemisphere, including national and regional covenants in Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, and Latin America. In this case, we're very happy to be here promoting this workshop in the context of the Caribbean Urban Forum in order to work directly with some of our key partners and stakeholders in the region, as well as to reach out to other potential cities, partners, and stakeholders who are interested in taking on this very important commitment, right, to join how we can develop and plan our territories, and at the same time, through that action, take on very real and concrete climate change commitments in the context, in this case, of the Global Covenant of Mayors. Just a little background very quickly on the Global Covenant of Mayors. Is the largest alliance of local governments for climate change in the world, with over 11,700 cities from all over the world who have taken on this commitment. To start us off, I would like to pass the word over to Jose Legaros. Jose Legaros should be there physically in the room. I wish I was there with you because I'm currently here in Santiago de Chile, where we are in the wintertime and it's a bit cold, as you can probably see. So I wish I was in Barbados with you all, but Jose Legarra is a program manager in Green Economy and Resilience section of the delegation of the European Union to Barbados. He manages the environment, biodiversity, and infrastructure portfolio at the delegation, and by profession, he is an architect. So over to you, Jose.
Is one of the biggest, the biggest in the world, is an historic response to climate change from cities all around the world. It encompasses more than 11,700 cities and local governments. And all in all, it is representing 1 billion people. Remember that all in all in the world, we are 7.5 and growing, so we have still work to do if everyone wants to be represented. The GCoM, the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, is the platform that provides for cities, regions, and communities a place where they can demonstrate the commitment to taking climate action on the global stage. Cities, regions, and communities from the European Union represent over 90% of this GCoM. So the willing of the European Union will be just to extend this GCoM belonging to more and more people. I mean, the idea will be just to reach other parts of the world, because climate change, as you can imagine, has no borders. It's not limited to one city, but is affecting all of us. The European Union is supporting the GCoM in the Americas and the Caribbean as well. It provides resources to support its members through technical assistance, networking, and events like this one for supporting urban climate change diplomacy. In this particular region, the GCoM was launched in 2019 in another Caribbean Urban Forum. So 3 years after, here we are all back. Since then, the European Union launched the Green Deal, which is the big gambling piece of the puzzle, which is a strategy to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050. Although an historic pandemic hit us badly, but we keep strong on our path to climate neutrality. The Green Deal is taking into account different areas, different pillars where this sustainability could be reached, but related to the urban context. And as an architect who I am, there will be some areas which that the Green Deal can deliver, and its external dimension here in the Caribbean as well. There are areas where these adaptation solutions can be drafted, which are, for instance, energy efficiency in buildings, circular economy, solid waste management, decarbonizing transport, protecting forests, meaning in a urban context, parks, greening our cities, more parks, more trees, connecting rural areas, building a low carbon industry, etc., etc., etc. We architects used to say that we are ideas producer. So in any case, there will be more and more fields to be investigated just to find solutions to reach this target of being climate neutral by 2050. The Caribbean region, as you know, is one of the most exposed to severe climate risks. So we need to support all the cities in the region with access to most advanced science and data available to better understand the risks and how to show opportunities that a sustainable energy transition can represent. The access to this data is key to shape public policies, ensuring an increased resilience for all these cities. Since the launch of the GCoM in the Caribbean, we have been working with the Caribbean Association of Local Government Authorities to anchor and grow the initiative. There are 6 existing GCoM cities in the region, and we would like to double this figure in the next year. So we need your commitment, not the attendance, but anyone else that could do, to double this adherence to the GCoM. So the European Union is calling you, representatives of the cities in the Caribbean, to join this alliance and demonstrate your commitment and to climate action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
I don't know which are the cities. If there is a question that you can that we can just pass to Ryan is finally connected.
No, it's Jordan Harris here from the GCoM Americas.
So
I can answer the question.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sure. So the question was, I believe, which are the 6 cities that are currently members of the GCoM, correct?
Yes.
These are Belmopan in Belize, Marmalade from Haiti, Portsmouth in Dominica, Georgetown from Guyana, Maypen in Jamaica, as well as the entirety of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Local Government Authorities, Tatalga, from Trinidad and Tobago. Those are currently the 6 members from the region.
Yeah, my follow-up question is, CALGA is your partner. The Caribbean Association of Local Government Authorities is a partner. How is that relationship working, or how functional is it? This is a critical question, I think.
Yes.
Sure, I can field that one as well, Jose. I can share that, yes, Calga was one of the founding partners of the GCoM when it was launched in the region during the previous phase of the project in 2018, 2019. We are currently in a process of revitalizing and relaunching the governance structure for the GCoM in the region. So this is something that's still in the very early stages. We, of course, will continue to work very closely with Calga as a key partner in the region. In fact, there is a Calga representative who is initially Chairman Roberts was supposed to be joining us for the event. He unfortunately had a last minute agenda shift. And we are expecting still a vice president of Calga to join us during the event today. So they are still quite interested and active in the GCoM governance structure, and we will be working very closely with them during this process of revitalization and relaunch.
Well, if you don't mind me commenting on that, we at Blue Space and the CUF have had a long relationship with Calga. And in fact, after the launch or even prior to the launch at the CUF in Port of Spain in 2019, Calga indicated to us that they did not have on board the technical capacity to undertake the responsibilities of managing the program in the region, and we provided support to them in the programming activities via the Blue Space at the University of the West Indies. So I'm just saying this, it is my feeling that, and I am occasionally in touch with Chairman Roberts, that the initiative may have stalled a bit in the Caribbean. And as I was wondering, what was the level of activities that was actually taking place in the cities that had signed up? So for example, Calga had asked that all the municipalities in Trinidad would be part of it. And it meant that there was a dissipation of the potential energy of getting one city on board. So I was here hoping to hear about things which I was going on that I wasn't aware of, but we had worked with Ryan Glancy at the time. So I do feel there is a need to reactivate and energize the process in the Caribbean. And I would just say that we are in the process of planning the next CUF as we talk right now, which will be in, well, I can't announce it as yet, but it very likely will have critical issues of energy utilization in it. And it may be an opportunity to work towards GCoM participating once more in the next CUF and using the period in between to maybe re-energize the process and get some activity. So just those are just some comments on my end. I would very much like, well, I don't want to, of course, I don't want to, I'm just saying this to other people and the other people in the audience here, but it would be useful to hear what is the state of any activities going on in the 6 territories in the cities. Well, Trinidad is the whole country. Yeah. What is the state of activities that in these particular cities?
Indeed. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I did not catch your name, just to be able to keep it into my notes.
Well, I almost don't want to give my name. Asad Mohammed.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're from the CUF, from the Caribbean Urban Forum organization?
Yeah, I'm from the Caribbean Network for Urban and Land Management, Blue Space.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. And indeed, we will be able to hear from shortly from Paolo Bortoli. He's from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. Paolo will then also be able to tell us a little bit about the kind of technical support that the JRC has and can provide for cities in the region, and we'll also be able to speak on what's to come in the coming years in the region. And I agree that I think that this space, perhaps in the next edition of the Caribbean Urban Forum, could be an excellent space for this reactivation, this relaunch of the governance structure. And just to respond initially to your comments on collaboration with CALGA, in general in the GCoM, I would say, have two different kinds of collaborators or collaboration. One, on the one hand, is a more technical collaboration, as you say, which requires certain capacities, for example, to be able to build capacities and train local practitioners in how to develop local climate action plans, how to search for financial mechanisms for the implementation of concrete action, how to do a greenhouse gas inventory for their territory, how to do a risk and vulnerability assessment for their territory, etc. And on the other hand, we also have collaborators that I would characterize as more of a political collaboration, right? These are associations, institutions that have the power to convoke, to invite, to bring cities to the table, to be able to participate in different kinds of events, both technical training events as well as other more maybe visibility or promotional events regarding the cities that are currently members, to be able to present their progress. So certainly, while CALGA may or may not have a certain level of technical capacity for the technical training aspect of things, they certainly are an important actor in order to be able to invite, convoke, bring cities to the table. And for that reason, we still do consider them to be a very key stakeholder in the region. I don't know if there's any other quick questions or comments. I'm not there in the room, so I can't see if there's any hands raised for the moment. If someone could just let me know. If not, then we will continue on with the agenda.
This is Asad Mohammed again.
Okay.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We have been working with CALGA as a membership organization that is active in the municipalities of the region. And they are the organization in the region that does that. In fact, they have historically been part of, in the last few years, the planning and management of the CUF. And we weren't able to get them engaged because of the disruption of the COVID, but we do hope to get them back on board, because municipalities are obviously an important part of any urban forum. So yeah, so they did have limitations in this particular area, technical limitations, which is why they'd ask us to partner with them. But they are the membership organization that's most suited for bringing on board and representing municipalities in the Caribbean. So there's no doubt about that particular point.
Good. Thank you very much, Asad, and you as well, Jose, for your opening remarks. Just very briefly before we move on, a few words on the GCoM Americas project. I had mentioned at the beginning about the GCoM on a global scale, being the largest alliance network of local governments for climate change in the world. Our particular project, as I think I had also mentioned, deals specifically with the 4 regional and national covenants that are in the Western Hemisphere. Up north, we have Canada and the United States, each of which have their own national covenant. We have a regional covenant for Latin America, and we also have a separate regional covenant specifically for the Caribbean region. And it's for this reason that we are in this stage of revitalizing the governance structure. As of 2020, I think it changed in 2021, the Caribbean was considered part of the Latin America and Caribbean region. So there's one consolidated macro region between Latin America and the Caribbean. In 2021, this changed, and the Caribbean has been established as its own standalone regional covenant. So it's also for this reason that this upcoming governance process is quite important. And we are definitely seeking out active and engaged partners in the region who can collaborate in different scales and different levels in this process. So that's why I also greatly appreciate the previous comments. These are absolutely fundamental to be able to understand really, what the needs are in the territory and how the GCoM can best respond to those needs through this governance structure. Our project in particular is focused as a local climate diplomacy project. So we're seeking to empower local governments to engage and to contribute from the local level to these big international agendas such as the Paris Accord, the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, the New Urban Agenda, as well as other international agendas that deal with climate and disaster risk reduction. And so in this context, we seek to, on the one hand, strengthen local technical capacities of local practitioners that allow them to go along the GCoM journey, to allow them to fulfill the commitments that they take on as part of the GCoM. I will go into more detail on those commitments a little later on in the activity, and as well as to support them in implementation. So we understand that there is a fervent and very urgent need for action, especially in a region such as the Caribbean, that is one of the most vulnerable regions in the world, perhaps, to the effects of climate change, and also the need for cities to be able to contribute, despite their relative contributions on a global scale, to contribute in their own way by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so that means they need capacities to be able to perform greenhouse gas inventories, to be able to perform vulnerability and risk assessments in their territories, to establish concrete goals that are both ambitious and realistic, and then to develop climate action plans that will allow them to strategically and methodologically implement these concrete actions in order to achieve these goals. So in that piece, we're also looking to support cities by bringing them into networks with various financial institutions and mechanisms to provide capacities as well, so that they can develop bankable climate action projects that they can connect with the different opportunities for climate financing, both regionally, locally, and internationally. And in that way, we are also quite keen on identifying in the region those cities that are interested in taking on these commitments and that are willing to receive support as well as to do the work, right? To really take on the challenges of the climate crisis and integrate it into their own local development planning processes. And finally, as this event demonstrates, and as future events will demonstrate as well, we're also looking to generate spaces for dialogue, for exchange, both within the region itself, between different cities and stakeholders in the Caribbean, to be able to share experiences, as well as with other cities from other regions, not only from the Americas, but from around the world. So the GCoM is very active on the international stage in the various high-level events. For example, the upcoming World Urban Forum that will take place in a couple of weeks in Poland. So we encourage as well our member cities to be actively engaged in those opportunities as they arise, to be able to generate those kinds of experience and knowledge sharing that we know are very valuable, to be able to both show what is happening, what they are doing in the region, as well as to learn from the best practices and the experiences from other cities from across the world. So that's very briefly just a summary of our current GCoM Americas project. I wanted to now give the floor to a colleague, Paolo Bertoldi. Paolo is of the European Commission Joint Research Center, and he's going to provide us with a little introduction with regards to the work that the Joint Research Center has done in the region thus far. Go ahead, Paolo.
Thank you, Jordan. Let me try to share my screen and put up a short presentation. Do you see it on my screen now, the presentation?
Yes, I do, Paolo.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to this very important meeting for the region. And good morning or good afternoon, wherever you be based. I work for the European Commission Joint Research Center. We are part of the DGs of the Commission, but we are special one. We don't do policy. We mainly do scientific and technical work. Just to recap, I think the two previous speakers already highlighted the importance of cities in global climate change emission reduction and also in increasing the resilience of our local communities. So while a goal is set at a global level, 1.5 temperature increase, for example, it's very important that action is taken at the local level by citizens, by communities, by municipalities, to do their share of the greenhouse gas emission reduction, but at the same time increase the resilience to the increased impact of climate change. And even if we reduce dramatically our emissions, unfortunately, the impact will, in any case, become bigger. And I know in particular the Caribbean has been always very much vulnerable to natural hazard. Many of these have been increasing intensity and frequency due to climate change. So basically, there is not only a spirit of fighting together to stop this increase in temperature, which in any case, as best we can do, will in any case increase a bit from 1.1 we are now to 1.5, but it's also to help the most vulnerable communities to be better prepared to face these natural hazards, including, of course, increase sea rise level. So the ambassador or his representative has already highlighted that this is a European initiative started many years ago in 2008, but then in 2016 became global. The Covenant of Mayors Europe and the Global Compact of Mayors, financed by Bloomberg, merged together because we were sharing the same ideas, the same principle, the same procedures, and so become the GCoM, and now targets the whole globe, and is focusing on mitigation, adaptation, and also access to energy for those communities which do not have yet clean, sustainable energy available, so they can take action to install, for example, renewable energies to supply whole household with electricity needed for, the basic service that we all need, from access to information to electricity for lighting, for cooling, for cooking, etc. What is interesting that we, in the GCoM, we share the same principle, but we also want to account for what we do. So it's not just a pledge that a mayor one morning decided, yes, I would like to reduce my emission. Yes, I think it's important, but they say, I would like to do so, and I will be reporting openly to what I do, to show my contribution, to be transparent, to account for what will be our contribution. And for this, we share a common reporting framework, which allows it to report information in a harmonized manner. We offer a lot of regional flexibility. And of course, we also understand that it's a big burden for a city, in particular in developing country, to collect information about their status of greenhouse gas emissions or their risk of vulnerability assessment, assessing basically the status of what are the risks and which sector are vulnerable and what can be done about. But if this information is collected, it allows to do a better planning. So for example, for adaptation, once you know what are the risks, which are the affected sectors, what can be done, then you can really do a good planning and most likely to be more successful when looking for financing, as Harris has just said. So very much at the center of this commitment is to create a climate action plan that the municipality will prepare on its own or with a group of municipality. And this is the example of Trinidad, where Calgas is TTALG in this case, from Trinidad, the Association of Local Municipalities is preparing an action plan for all the municipality in the island of Trinidad, or can be maybe a province helping out the municipality in the province to do a plan. What's important that some basic information is collected and that this information is then used to do a planning, for example, for mitigation, understanding where the emissions are coming from, if it's better to act on residential building, on public buildings, street lighting, on mobility, for example, or on energy sources, replacing maybe diesel-based electricity generation with renewable generation, for example, photovoltaics. I need more details on this climate action plan. So for mitigation, as I said, it's important to have an emission inventory against which your progress as municipality will be measured, in particular the emission reductions. And I say we look at sectors like buildings, energy generation, mobility and transport, in particular reduction of, for example, fossil fuels vehicles, being cars, buses, or trucks, and the waste generation, because waste can also emit waste and wastewater, not only CO2, but also methane, which is even worse than CO2. Then the climate adaptation starts with a risk and vulnerability assessment, which determines the nature and extent of the risk by analyzing potential hazard and assessing also the vulnerability posed to people, infrastructures, livelihoods, and the environment. So it can be flooding, can be hurricanes, but also can be forest fire, drought. Different regions are impacted in different manner, but it's very important to identify at the local level what can be done. And it's also very important that most only in smaller countries like many of the Caribbean islands, maybe national climate plans, for example, under the NDC can offer already a good source of information for local authorities. So there may be some national plans for adaptation, then some provincial or regional, and then this municipality can build on them. But even sometimes the national plans are too broad and cover, and really the specific of the hazard is at the local level. Maybe the local community is prone to landslide or something like this. And finally, the energy access, understand which part of the population does not have yet access to sustainable or clean form of modern energy. Most probably in your region is not yet an issue, but we work globally, and for example, in the Sub-Saharan Africa, this is still a big issue for many municipalities. Once the municipalities collect all this information, they are able to set a vision, where they want to do in terms of emission reduction, in terms of adaptation. So they set the target and goals, and then they collaborate a plan how to get from now to the reaching of the target and goals. Of course, the plan is the initial step. A plan has to be realistic, has to count on what are the resources available, what are the contribution of the private sector, most probably the national contribution coming to municipalities, but also has to identify potential source of financing. And we know that financing is very much critical. And so the GCoM is very much also focused in helping city to attract financing, help training them to prepare bankable plans, both for mitigation adaptation that can be then financed by development banks, by private banks, by various donors with grants, loans, etc. The GCoM also set up a kind of time framework. PD have to complete these various steps. It's not really so strict, but it's important that within a certain time from signing up the city can have a plan in place and then can implement the plan and monitor. Of course, what we want is action, and so that the plan is important, and even more important is the implementation of the plan. We provide technical support at the global level to set, for example, the way in which cities should report, the so-called common reporting framework. We try also to help at local level, and we've been tasked also to support some local authority in different regions with our experience based on now 12 years of supporting and working cities, initially in Europe and now globally. So in the Caribbean, we have been already working with 2 cities, Portsmouth in Dominica and Trinidad with Titalga. And they've been already through a lot of meeting with us, and they prepare or are on the verge of preparing plans. And this is very positive. They've been collecting all the data as required. They gain knowledge, but a lot of knowledge they must meet was already in the municipalities. Is very important also to highlight that whole start with a committed mayor, with some technical support in his staff, and then once this interest is there, both the Jordan team with his expert plus the GRC are willing to support you in the different both technical issues, but maybe also political issues, and as I said, the financing as well as an important element. So this is in a nutshell what we do. And in the Americas, we, as I say, we started many years ago to support the city in Merida and Puebla. We, as I said, working with Portsmouth, Dominica, and the island of Trinidad. In particular, there, while Dominica is directly with the mayor and staff in Trinidad, we very much work with Titalga. And we also offer training at the regional level, participating in capacity building events like today. And now in agreement with Jordan and his team, we have capacity to support 4 to 5 additional cities in your regions. I know the team of Jordan and the delegation in Barbados will identify these cities. I don't have any element to judge which will be and any criteria to select them, but certainly we would like to have some city which would be interested in working with us as basically as technical support and start this journey towards establishing a successful plan. So I would like to say that we will looking forward to work with these cities, but also with the city at large, because I think once we have cities that join this journey, we very much will use them as examples, shining example that other city can imitate or can join forces with them, maybe by twinning, and gradually a majority of cities in your region can adopt a similar process. So I thank you for your attention, and I'm available for question, or you can always contact Jordan, who can put you in contact with us. And as I said, they're looking very much forward to working with you. Your region is not only beautiful, but as say, suffering already a lot by climate change, and is also, for what I've seen, as a lot of municipalities which are really committed to do something about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paolo. As always, it's a privilege to have you on any panel with your vast experience and knowledge in this area. I would open perhaps the floor to any initial comments or questions, both from the physical audience who is there in Barbados. I would ask if there are any questions from the floor there to please state your name and any institutional affiliation before your question. And also, for those of you who are joining us online, you can please direct your questions or comments to the Q&A section in the chat there in the Zoom platform, and we can do our best to channel your questions. Is there anyone there physically who has any questions for Paolo at this point? Okay, I'm seeing that there are no questions at this point, and well, just also I would like to before announcing
Paolo,
the next.
This is Asad Mohammed again.
Asad, go ahead.
When we had reviewed the common reporting framework, we had found that it was rather extensive and complex for many of the Caribbean cities for a range of reasons. One of them had to do with size. There were many countries in the region which had populations equal to or less than the size of large cities that the reporting framework was being done. So that's one issue. And the second one is that, well, there are three issues. The second issue is that much of the data collection, therefore, was taking place at the national level and not at the municipal level. And there was need for some sort of scaling to find out what was happening at the municipal level. And the third issue had to do with the action plan, the climate action plan, because the nature of municipal government or governance in the region was very varied. So that some countries had the municipalities, and a few countries had the power to manage things like waste or transportation, which were part of the action plan. But many municipalities or cities did not have any municipal power to manage that, and therefore it was difficult to really have a climate action plan by city in some of the smaller cities. So Maypen and Portsmouth and Dominica were really there because they had very active local government representatives on CalGA. But it's really a question, a comment, but a question in that I think there is need to modify the common reporting framework to suit the conditions in the region. And I think what we had proposed was a template of Caribbean cities into small, medium, and large ones with different types of municipal power, different issues, and different data capabilities. Some work had already been done in that, and an assessment of what data was really available from EDGAR, the EDGAR framework on it. So those are just some comments, and maybe he could react to that.
Yeah, thank you for this question. It's very, very relevant. So first of all, we are aware of the complexity of the current CRF, and the GCoM itself is working right now to simplify them. Most probably for smaller cities should be even simpler. And as you said, for some smaller country in terms of area and population, most probably it makes sense to have the action plan done at provincial or a national level and downscaling the data. So I think I'm fully in agreement with you. So we try to accommodate this issue as well, in particular for the Caribbean island. And in fact, also of empowering local mayor to take action is an important, another important point on which we don't have really a power to change the national constitution and budget rules, but we believe strongly that a mayor is very close to citizens, and so it's very in a very good position to motivate both local business and citizens to take action, because not all action has to come from top down, should be also from the bottom, from citizens making choice to install, for example, photovoltaic panels in their roofs, or using public transportation rather than driving the cars. So very much on data, yes, to downscaling national data. On the other point of governance, indeed, we should look at the national governance, if it's multi-level, if there is the power, if it's a province. You mentioned MAPEN. MAPEN started work with us and then they drop out, but in fact we were discussing to have the action at the parish level because they were sharing transportation, waste, and the same. So I think the GCoM is flexible to have, as I said, in Trinidad is a full island basically participating with a single action plan, which should make sense rather than having a lot of different action plans for these municipalities. What's important is a commitment from the mayor, most probably support from the province, support from the central governments, and then, yes, the policy may be taken at whatever level is appropriate.
Great. Thank you very much, Paolo. It's certainly a very important issue, and we are aware that from the data technical working group on the global level, this issue is being currently worked on. So we definitely hope to have some news for partners quite soon. As we understand that this is a very significant challenge, especially in a region with characteristics such as the Caribbean, in which data availability, accessibility is certainly an issue. We, from a project level in the GCoM Americas, will also be supporting some work to consolidate different data sources on emissions in particular from the region. So we would hope to also be able to contribute through some expert work in that area to facilitate this kind of process for the local governments. I see there's another question in the room. Please go ahead.
Yes, Steve Kemp, Open Plan. Just a technical question, really. In the presentation, we obviously looked at climate change mitigation as well as adaptation. There didn't seem to be any specific reference there to demand reduction as far as energy was concerned. So the things about switching to renewables, in effect, but there didn't seem to be much on reducing the demand for energy in the first place, which might be critical to achieving that switch from carbon emitting to renewable resources. Just wondered if that was an omission rather than an emission, and if it is, whether that's to be rectified.
Yes, thank you. I didn't go into much details, but in fact, we always recommend municipalities to look at the demand side and start with energy efficiency first. Basically, is important that the baseline of energy is established somehow with some tools, as downscaling, and then look at the efficiency potential, for example, in street lighting to go to LED lighting, in buildings to have efficient conditioners if they are used, or efficient cooking system. And yes, indeed, I didn't want to go into technical details, but we, when we prepare guidebooks, we look at all the demand side solutions as well as the energy supply, so the renewables. But yes, indeed, the most cost-effective way very often is the one where you don't generate energy, but you just reduce it through efficiency. I think example of successful project, for example, for in municipal buildings, to refurbish them, to have efficient cooling, recovery, insulation, and then street lighting are very important solutions for reducing emissions in cities.
Thank you, Paolo. I have one question that's popped up here in the chat, in the virtual room. This is from Aisha. She asks, what is the time frame to engage Caribbean mayors, especially in respect of simplifying the reporting mechanism? I don't know if you can speak on that a bit, Paolo.
Yeah, I think there is general agreement from all the regions that the system we have now is too complex. So we are working right now with experts from all the regions. so globally, to reduce the reporting burden. And we hope to have a new common reporting framework ready by the end of the year. So it will be 2 points. First, it will be very much simplified. A second point allows for regional deviation. So each region can indicate what else they want to, even when it will be changed, what else they don't feel is necessary for them or is too complex, and then they can propose a regional deviation, which will be most probably accepted. So I think is only good news for all of us, this. It takes some months to be ready, but as I said, we are working very hard on this.
Great, thank you very much, Paolo. I'm sure we all are looking forward to the results of that process and hopefully being able to maybe speak a little bit more on that in detail towards the end of the year. If there are no more questions, I see there's none in the room and I don't see anyone on the chat. I would like to then pass the floor over to Joseph Williams of the Caribbean Development Bank. Thank you, Paolo, for your fantastic presentation and for fielding these questions. As you can see, it's generating a lot of interest. So I thank you for your intervention at this stage. Joseph Williams is the coordinator of sustainable energy at the Caribbean Development Bank. He joined the bank in 2014. Among other things, he's led development and implementation of the bank's current energy sector policy and strategy, and has over 30 years of experience in the energy sector in the Caribbean, covering policy, project implementation, and financing. In the past, he practiced as an electric utility engineer, regional energy management consultant, and also managed the CARICOM energy program. Mr. Williams is a professional mechanical engineer. He also holds a master's of science in engineering and management with an emphasis on energy policy and planning, a master of business administration as well in finance and sustainability. So the floor is yours, Mr. Williams. Please go ahead and let us know a little bit about the kind of initiatives that the Caribbean Development Bank has to support local climate action in the region.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, yes.
Okay, thanks. So I was asked also just to give a little flavor of CDB by the coordinator. So I'll start with that in terms of, let me just see if I can get this on. Okay. A little bit of a background. So I'll just put a little brief overview, provide a brief overview, CDB and funding available, and then I'll talk a little bit about the bank's operation in the area of climate resilience, generally, high level, and we'll respond to specific questions. So CDB was established in 1969 and is located in Barbados. It's the only multilateral development bank dedicated to the Caribbean, and we have 19 borrowing members. They are listed there, which essentially are the English-speaking Caribbean countries, CARICOM members and associate members. I said English-speaking, but there's also Haiti and Suriname, which are part of the set of borrowing members. The mission is focused on reducing poverty, transforming lives through sustainable, resilient, and inclusive development. And I've underlined or emphasized sustainable, resilient, and inclusive because that's a big focus in all the things we do. So we like to even talk about resilience as something that is a part of our DNA, because of all the things that have been spoken about already, the high vulnerability and the fact of the impact of climate change, which is already happening and so on. So just to give a sense of the scope, the total asset is approximately 2.1 billion, and average approvals over the last 5 years is about 366 million. And our resources generally available on offer to our members fall under 3 broad headings: ordinary capital, special development funds, resources, SDF, and then other special funds. Just to say a quick word on that, So the ordinary capital are our main loan resources. Obviously, well, not obvious, but they are market resources, and so they are affected by what's happening in the market. Special Development Fund represents our main concessional resources, and they are really contributed by members of the bank. But other partners could also contribute to this fund, but it will provide grants to some countries and then very concessional loan resources to treat with various things, but primarily focus on poverty reduction interventions and linkages to those. So obviously most of the issues are connected. So, you know, it's a whole slew of options that can be supported, but have to be clearly linked to that poverty reduction objective. Then the other special funds, these are funds which come into the bank through special agreements with partners. And in some cases, the bank serves as intermediary for different resources at the international level. So for example, the GCF or the EU CIF, we are intermediary, and so we can channel resources to members by taking initiative or working coordinately with the countries to apply for resources and so on. And then we have resources like the UK CIF, which is a pool of grant resources provided by the government of the United Kingdom to target special infrastructure development. And that is something that's in operation. But the point here is that we have a pool of special resources which are managed by agreement between the bank and those partners who contribute, whether country or agencies. Just a quick flavor, I have labeled here sectors, but it's more like areas of our funding operation and the energy, economic infrastructure, as well as the social structure sector, and it gives a flavor. Sorry, I'm getting a feedback. Can you hear me still? Yeah, okay. So it gives a flavor of the areas of our intervention, mainly on the infrastructure side. So roads are part of transport sector, airport, seaport, coastal protection, tourism, disaster management, education, water sanitation, energy, urban development, rural infrastructure, waste management, and so on. As I mentioned before, resilience is an important part of our current strategy, but the bank's mission. So we talk about climate resilience, but really we now think of resilience in a broad and holistic way, so that we talk about economic resilience, environment resilience, but social resilience and so on, because the issues are all interconnected. But obviously, climate resilience has its own carve out in terms of the approaches, strategies, and financing that need to support some of the specific intervention. And some key policies here are we have a climate resilience strategy which guides how we operate in space and provide clarity to our members as to what we can and cannot do, and give them a sense of being able to engage with the bank. Then there is the disaster strategy and disaster management strategy and operational guidelines, and energy sector policy and strategy. And critically, there is an urban sector policy and strategy that is being revamped. And the focus there is really about a more coordinated, integrated, and maybe holistic approach as to how we treat with urban intervention. So many of the projects, the question is, do them in a way that recognizes that there's special needs and opportunities for impact there. And obviously we do technical assistance across the board, but in many cases in the context of climate, it's about helping to get the data, the evidence, early warning system, capacity, studies, vulnerability assessments, and so on, which are important to inform the investment projects, the capital project. And obviously investment funding is critical. That the bank has done over the years from inception. But I'm just making the point here that in the context of climate resilience, these dimensions are become even more important in making sure that we have very robust capital projects. And all investment projects are, capital projects for sure, are screened for our climate resilience dimension. There's a climate vulnerability assessment, a tool that is applied generally, typically, and as a standard route means, these capital projects. Now, it is considered, is looked at to see to what extent this area is an issue, and the adjustments will be made in terms of how the project is designed, and as necessary where the gaps are, the financing is provided to help to bridge those gaps. Similarly, on the energy side, we like to think that we have also mainstream sustainable energy, and that means apart from the strategy and engaging and looking at big opportunities, even a project that is presented to the bank for funding, we ask that question: to what extent there are opportunities for us to incorporate, and we have those engagement with the partners. And the resources I mentioned before, I'm sorry, I just lost my, the resources, just very quickly, I mentioned the main resources above, but within that frame, and especially under that special development fund, other special fund window, under our special, so what we call a special fund resource, we have a pool of resources in the case of for climate action and to support incentivizing and reducing the impact in terms of, well, should I say, increased concessionality in terms of responding to the climate situation. So one of the very useful line of action we have is the EIB, that's the European Investment Bank, and it's a climate action line we call CALC, and that allows us to blend very soft terms to end up with more effective overall terms in terms of how we support some of the capital projects that have a climate component to it. We have other partners, AFD, IDB. Obviously, we are an intermediary to the GCF, which is a very important pool of resources. And even recently, we have established some agreement with government of Italy for some additional concessional resources to help, including other things, but including for financing for climate actions. So, and partnership is very important in this context. And so I mentioned here a few institutions. 5Cs is the Climate Change Center, SEDIMA, CrossQ, Caribbean Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Center. I'm going to pause here and I'll come back on the matter. I think there's a question later where I could pick up on some of those, but this gives you a flavor of some of the aspects of the various projects. What are the elements that we would normally support there, whether it is in water, energy, transport, and so on. So I'll pause here for the moment, just by way of introduction, given the guidance I was given earlier, but I will take questions as necessary, but also come back as the time allows to speak a little bit more of the projects and intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Very interesting and important introduction here to the ways in which the CDB can and is supporting these kinds of essential projects in the region. Before we go back, well, I'm not sure if there's any questions there in the room. I'm not able to see any hands raised, but if there are, okay, I see that there are currently no questions and neither in the chat. So we can move on then, before moving back to a dialogue, to our next speaker, Yolande Jules. Yolande Jules joins us from CALGA, from the Caribbean Association of Local Government Authorities. He has been re-elected as the village councillor and chairman of the NDLA in Delca. He's a second vice president of CALGA, as well as a board member of the CLGF. He is responsible for representing the institution in various executive meetings, as well as supervising staff in Delca, attending functions and representing the association in different committees, as well as visiting and overseeing village councils from across the country in Dominica. As well, he has worked with the Public Works Department on in the Road Maintenance Division from 1980 to 1995, and from 2001 to 2017. He is a member of the Viele Case Village Council since 1977 to date. He's been the chairman of Delca for 9 years, pro CALGA for 6 years, and part of CALGA board for 3 years, and second vice president of CALGA for 3 years as well. Welcome, Yolande. The floor is yours. Please go ahead and let us know from the perspective, the local perspective within the region, some of the most important priorities and the vision regarding response to the climate crisis.
Thank you very much. And the name is Yolande John Jules.
My apologies, Mr. Jules.
It is practically French. In French, you pronounce it Jean-Gilles. That's why it is spelled J-N-O. But because my father is it was a Martinican, and that's why the French and the English mixed up. Yes, of course, I have been part of the Vacas Village Council since my youth days. And I've also been part of the Dominica Association of Local Government Authorities for a number of years. I entered when it was DALA, and then it became DALCA, and I am still there. So I am the longest serving councillor, village councillor, I think in the whole Commonwealth. This year gives me 45 years as a village councillor on the Vilcaz Village Council. Well, Vilcaz is an indigenous village, or Carib Indian name is Itasi. That's what our forefathers name it. And most of the Carinago Carib Indians in Dominica originated from the village of Vacas. That was one of the first Carinago villages, or the Carib village that we had in the island. Well, of course, I am also partly linked to Trinidad very close because of my mother, and all my brothers and sisters were all Trinidadians. So I am the only Dominican born of my mother. And of course, I have served this country voluntarily for almost all my life. Now, I was asked yesterday afternoon to represent Chairman or President Anthony Roberts, who was unable to attend today's session. So I am just going to speak to you. The Global Convention of Mayors, GCoM, partnered with the Joint Research Center, GRC, to bring the Caribbean countries together to respond to the global regional exchange called number 22, Energy Access, Poverty, IPA. This initiative was further challenged through the Caribbean Association of Local Government Authorities, CALGA, of which I'm the second vice president. And I have been on CALGA since 2012. I was the PRO for 2 terms, and then I was a president for 1 term, and Mr. Roberts took over, and I became the second vice president. So this call sought to ensure that the country's development and common reporting framework for the IPA, which calls for access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy for all. The IPA requires full local, national, and regional perspectives and experiences to be developed according to the needs, flexibility, and adaptability of the participating countries. Now, as the representative of CALGA, CALGA covers a number of countries in the Caribbean, stretching from Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, the Bahamas, Belize, and the OECS and the wider Caribbean region. So the strategy was to work with the ACP countries through the Caribbean Association of Local Authorities, CALGA, to assist local authorities in the implementation, preparation, and monitoring of the Climate Action Plan, CPA. This CPA sought to cover both Adaptation and Mitigation Initiative to climate change by mobilizing and supporting ambitious, measurable planned climate and energy action in our different communities. The activities includes governance for collaboration of the CUF, appointment of a coordinator, mapping of tasking, and collecting relevant data for municipality and cities. States, thirdly, state-of-the-art, evaluate, process, and make recommendations, formulate vision for municipality and with global and objective to be achieved by 2030 and possibly by 2050. CALGA formed the Alliance Mayor for Climate to deliver the strategy to suit the Caribbean countries. And this strategy was delivered 5 technical working groups in 4 pathways. So what occurred to date? Participating countries such as Guyana and Jamaica implemented initiatives geared at improving adaptation and mitigation with their municipalities. In Dominica, we were following the steps for preparation for a pilot CUF for the town of Portsmouth, commencing with data collection for energy emulsion from the various sections of such as electricity, transport, waste, agriculture, and how this data can be used to inform and improve development within the municipality. Key personnel from the local associations, which I chair, was transferred from the Ministry of Youth into implementation of the government's preferred initiative to climate action geared at responsive social protection, which could be mainstreamed across the various sectors such as disaster risk management, agriculture, food security, and housing and recovery initiatives are ongoing as planned, and programs along this framework are being implanted. DALCA's progress to date. DALCA was offered an account under my Covenant platform to report initiative and receive support from thoughts or through this GCoM platform for the city of Roseau and Portsmouth. An offline version of the platform was also provided in coordinating and collecting data to inform the CUF for the cities. To date, data was only collected from DOMLEC, as the Dominica Electricity Company, and fuel consumption from the Technical Working Group Committee, while other information were not forthcoming from the other sectors such as solid waste, agriculture, and the construction industry. partnership for the initiative are ongoing due to the lack of human resource capacity as the association works with the mayor of Portsmouth, Roseau, and the NDA for Dominica in strengthening the process. The next step, partnership for continuation of the data collection processes and reporting to the GCoM platform as a country along with the other participating ACP countries. Secondly, monitoring and evaluation of the implementation process of the CUF aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, reporting and recommendations. That is as far as DALCA reached with our plan that we had in place. Now, the Caribbean Association of Local Government is working along all the countries mentioned, such as Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, and Dominica, to assist in the implementation of that project. Well, I have very little information from only getting a late notice last night to present this morning. So I only had to rush something through the night and came out with what I know best. So we are still open for working together with GCoM. We are still open for getting the information needed, which we are working on presently. And of course, CALGA, as the main body of the Caribbean, representing all the local authorities through the OECS and CARICOM, we are working tirelessly to get things operative so that we could have a proper plan to present to the local, to the global covenant of mayors. And we are working on climate and energy, as Dominica had already decided that the Prime Minister announced Dominica very soon that Dominica will be one of the first climate resilient countries in the world. And of course, we can see in the building of climate resilient houses, we are trying to develop as much solar as possible and avoid all the greenhouse gases which causes the problem to the climate, of which Dominica is not a contributor in no way. We are a nature island of the Caribbean, a natural country, and we want to work naturally. So we wish everyone good. We wish that we could get the assistance to implement the project for all the 4 countries which applied through the GCoM. And I hope that we will continue to work together with the Global Covenant of Mayors and with whoever it takes, whether the Caribbean Development Bank or the European Union, CLGF, for the further strengthening of our countries in this die-hard and crucial time that we are living. I think we can do very little with the change of climate, with the distance that it have gone. But if we continue our best with the Sustainable Development Goals to do whatever is written, we can be successful in some way or the other. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jean-Jules. I think you've really brought it together quite nicely, giving this update and this contextualization of the challenges that we face, the needs that local governments have, both in Dominica and from throughout the region. So I thank you kindly for your intervention. I'm not there in the room, so again, I'm not sure if there are any hands raised, if there are any questions from the room for Mr. Jean-Jules.
No.
Okay, if there are no questions, then, well, Unfortunately, I think we're on time. I would like to end very quickly, just giving a very brief opportunity for each of our speakers to just in 1 minute give some final remarks to be able to kind of bring together or to highlight maybe something that you may have missed in your initial presentation, or some kind of a priority issue that we could use moving forward to continue to facilitate these kinds of dialogues. I would briefly hand the floor back to Paolo Bertoldi. Paolo, if you could just very briefly in 1 minute, give us some final reflections and remarks.
Thank you. I can only reiterate that we are very keen to work with the local community in the region. Jordan, you will coordinate with the potential municipality would like to join this effort, but we were very happy to help them. We are very also happy to work already with Portsmouth, Dominica, and the island of Trinidad. Climate change is urgent, is happening. So the sooner we move, the better it is. And I think when we have a number of cities joining this initiative and making their best effort, and nobody is here to give marks, votes, marks, and is really a grassroots movement. So participate, do whatever you can, and it will be very much appreciated. So let's work together, and then when we have some shining example, this can be replicated throughout the Caribbean. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today and to listen to a very interesting presentation as well at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo. And it's certainly very exciting, this opportunity for dedicated JRC supports to a group of 4 to 5 cities in the region. And we will certainly follow up on that. We will be looking for motivated city practitioners and authorities, local authorities in the Caribbean region to be able to participate in that very valuable process. I would now like to give the floor back to Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, if you could just give us also your final reflections and remarks.
Sure, thank you so much. So thanks. We're open to supporting the agenda. The question of how to engage is a very simple answer to that. It's just a matter of making that request to CDB. Obviously, when we deal with a country, we have a program with countries, and so everything will be looked at in that context. But and especially in the context of the public sector, I just wanted to highlight though that there's a Mr. Whitfield Clark, who is really overseeing the urban sector policy and strategy. So he's really the main point of contact in that regard. I just wanted to just mention this one slide here, which I think captures a lot in terms of what we, recent activities, but it really shows our commitment to really making a difference in the urban space. This is a project that was done in Barbados, and it kind of gives you a before and after shot, but at the heart of the city, and it was very transformational and is very well maintained and preserved even today, even though it was done many years ago. But really, really very important, bringing a number of issues together, the climate, as well as a number of other value to the tourism product and to citizenry in the heart of the city there. So we are in this business to support the countries, the region in the transition, but I think our engagement in the context of your organization and the work of GCoM would be useful, and we stand ready to provide all the support. But Mr. Whitfield Clark is the name of the gentleman with whom I just want to make sure you stay in contact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And no, that's a very inspiring image. That last one that we just saw up there on the screen of the kind of transformational change that we can make in cities when we combine these kinds of political commitments with the technical capacities and the suitable financial institutions and mechanisms that can bring these visions and these actions to fruition. Well, I guess just as a final remark to close the session, I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists, Paolo Bertoldi of the JRC, Mr. Joseph Williams of the Caribbean Development Bank, and Yolande Jean-Jules of Calga and Dalca for their participation and their interventions in today's event. From our side, the GCoM Americas will continue to support and channel support directly to cities throughout the region in the ensuing years. We will definitely be following up on several of the issues that were brought to our attention during the course of this event, in particular in the context of our revitalization of the GCoM governance structure in the Caribbean, as well as moving forward with the dedicated JRC technical support to 4 to 5 cities in the region. And I also kindly note, Mr. Williams, the contact information regarding who would be a focal point from the CDB, as we definitely also want to follow up on the possibilities of supporting cities with regards to access to financing opportunities for climate action in the region. The European Union, through its support of the GCoM Americas project, is fully committed to taking the urgency that is required. I think Mr. Jean-Jules brought it together quite well. This is a crisis. We are living in a time of crisis. I have a daughter who's less than 1 year old, and as I was playing with her this morning, I thought by the time she's 40, 50, 60 years old, as many of us connected to this event are today, the world will be a very different place. And the kind of world that she will be able to expect will depend greatly on the kinds of commitments and the kinds of actions that we take today. So I would just encourage everyone who's here listening to follow up, to take this seriously. Cities and local authorities, please look into joining the GCoM. It's quite a straightforward process. This can be done through the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy website. There is a commitment letter to fill out, and that will then be channeled to our secretariat so that we can provide you with the welcoming and onboarding that is needed. We will continue to be active as well in the region, and I look forward to the next instance of the Caribbean Urban Forum to be able to show the progress that we've made during the coming year. Thanks again to all of our panelists, to everyone who's taken the time to attend the event, both physically there in Barbados, as well as online, and have a great day. I hope that you make the most of your time at the forum. Thanks a lot.